Monster Hunter is a phenomenon. As a newcomer to the Monster Hunter franchise, specifically with Monster Hunter Rise, I'm amazed at how one singular franchise can grow so much and help turn around the fate of major developer and publisher Capcom. Back in the late 210s. Back in the late 2010s.
2010s.
Back in the late 2010s, Monster Hunter was very much a good-selling IP, but it was still considered niche in mainstream gaming circles. Monster Hunter World dropped and bam, multi-million-dollar seller. Stonks went up, deals were done, money was made, babies were conceived, the whole shebang. To be fair, this upward trajectory didn't start out of nowhere. Capcom had been slowly tweaking Monster Hunter's gameplay loop to be as addictive and collaborative as can be, while at the same time also broadening its appeal to as many filthy casuals as possible.
By the way, you don't have to actually accentuate that. I just wrote that as a way of like...
You wrote it as filthy casuals. Like, you're all filthy casuals. If you are currently watching this video, that means you are a filthy casual. With this wider audience, it's safe to assume that both newcomers and veterans of the series find themselves with differing opinions about the game. Fast forward to the release of Monster Hunter Rise on the Nintendo Switch's install base, and Capcom finds itself continually growing its audience even further. Monster Hunter Rise is, according to Capcom, the mainline Monster Hunter game to come out for the Nintendo Switch and later onto PC. I call it mainline for the sake of conversation, and also because Capcom considers it mainline, but according to big Monster Hunter fans that have been playing the series since 1, 2, y 3, they don't consider this a mainline Monster Hunter, and more so consider it a portable baby Monster Hunter like the previous 3DS games. Capcom doesn't do numbered titles anymore, especially with their latest Monster Hunter entries. To a newcomer... A new cucumber. A newcomer.
A newcomer.
To a newcomer, it's understandable if a game with a big number next to the game is less appealing than a more generalized title. A title like Monster Hunter 5 Ultimate Extreme Bloodlines with Funky Mode isn't as welcoming to the new players as a title like Monster Hunter World or Monster Hunter Rise. In my opinion, I do appreciate this naming convention. Even at a subconscious level, it's a way of seeming less intimidating to filthy casuals like myself. Should be like, to filthy casuals like the person who wrote this video. As a newcomer to a very mechanically dense franchise, the last thing that's going to convince you to try the game is thinking the game is hard to understand without previous experience. We're not applying for a job, we're just trying to play a game. Rise hits you with most of its gameplay elements from the very beginning. The core gameplay concept of Monster Hunter has been the same for the whole series. You start the game with a roster of weapons, each of a different type, ranging from sword and shields to hammers to gun lances to flying insect glaives. Monster Hunter Rise starts out with all 14 weapon types. Each weapon type is virtually its own character with their own mechanics and battle styles. The bow and bowgun, for example, have a wide variety of ammo types and focus on long-range battles, whereas weapons like the longsword and hammer are for players that enjoy getting up close and personal with the monster. If you like fast and mobile weapons, you can have your hand at the dual blade and insect glaive, the latter being my main. Having the full roster of weapon types at your disposal from the very beginning can seem quite intimidating. It's very much like a fighting game in a sense, except you're not competing against other players, you're hunting monsters. Like a fighting game, you get a full roster of characters, and you try out each one until you find one that matches your playstyle or that simply feels good to learn and play. This same method is applied to Monster Hunter weapons. When you finally pick a favorite weapon, you roll with it and the game turns you into mastering that weapon and understanding the matchups against other characters. In this case, monsters. Every weapon is viable against every monster. You don't really see tier lists of weapons like you do tiers of characters. It simply is a matter of picking whatever feels best to you and how you maneuver and fight the different monsters. Going back to the fighting games comparison, you don't immediately get good with a character in a fighting game. You gotta go to a training room, get your bread and butter combos down, and figure out what are your strengths and weaknesses. Then you head right into the matches, and you learn by getting utterly destroyed a million times. Over and over and over again. It never ends, guys. To be fair, it's not that bad in Monster Hunter, as it is in a fighting game.
I've fallen, and I can't get up!
Weapons work the same way. In Monster Hunter Rise, you immediately get access to a training area. The game doesn't give you any sort of tutorial, nor does it make you go to the training area. You have to go there on your own and figure out how your weapons even function. The game does give you an on-screen basic rundown of how your weapon works once you're in the training area, but putting them to use during a hunt is a much different story than using it against the unmovable dummy in training. So now you have to practice by actually hunting. I absolutely love this about the Monster Hunter Rise. No. About the Monster Hunter Rise. I absolutely love this about Monster Hunter Rise. And I think this lack of guidance immediately represents the game's relationship with the player. You're not told to go to the training room. You're also not told what weapon types they are. You have to find and search for these things yourself, and thereafter you are rewarded with your own knowledge and expertise. This is how the game starts, and it's also the basis of Monster Hunter's addictive nature and gameplay loop. Monster Hunter is all about reaping what you sow. As you get better and better, your weapon starts to get stronger and stronger directly from what you hunted. You get stronger through your own means. There is no leveling up in Monster Hunter, at least not in the traditional sense. You get good by hunting. The gameplay loop is set up to feel rewarding and satisfying by your own means. Again, I think this is one of the best things about Monster Hunter. You can invest several, if not hundreds of hours in a weapon or two, only to completely change up the gameplay and perspective of the game by picking a different weapon. Then the loop continues. This gameplay loop can be exponentially addictive. The monsters and environments are just as important to Monster Hunter Rise as the weapons. The environments in the main game are pretty standard though. You're placed in a closed sandbox that has small creatures, endemic life, and about...
endemic or endemic?
I don't know. I've never seen that word before in my life.
Endemic.
Is it endemic?
I thought it was endemic.
I don't know. I read it as endemic.
Endemic. Endemic.
Endemic.
Okay, it's not endemic then. You're placed in a closed sandbox that has small creatures, endemic life, plant resources, and about 3 or so monsters for you to hunt. You've got the 2 forest areas, one with some rundown ancient temple structures, and one with a lot of swampy areas. Then you have a mountainous snowy area, a lava cavern, a desert area, and some battle arena types for specific missions. While it can be argued that the environments are pretty basic, the monsters are not at all. All the monsters have their own type of movesets, and they react and move very differently from one another.
What is it?
Watch out! It's a monster!
Let me take care of this. What is it? Bruh.
There are 46 large monsters in Rise, with just a handful of them being Apex variations. Each monster is its own adventure, and their designs are unbelievable.
Are believable. They're believable.
Fine.
Fine.
Fine. I'm just gonna change the exact opposite. Just roll with it. Each monster is its own adventure, and their designs are believable. There is no fantastical element in the game other than the fact that one human can take down a giant ferocious creature the size of a large tank or a small house. Other than that, I love how they explain the monsters and their physiologies. Magnamalos, the poster monster of the main campaign in Rise, for example, uses what seems like purple magical flames for attacks. In the game, it looks like mystical purple fire that it uses to rain down on you or envelop itself for more massive super attacks. They explain it in-game as basically monster farts. It uses digestive explosive gases according to the hunter notes, so Magnamalos uses the power of his farts to fight. Dude's probably eating beans out in the wild. Keep this man away from Chipotle. In the same way, all the monsters have these believable real-world explanations. The Royal Ludroth uses water and inflicts water blight on hunters, which is a condition that makes it hard for you to regain stamina. His design is like that of a lizard lion, with his mane being made of basically sponges that absorb and expel watery mucus. Check out this description. A larger male form of the regular Ludroth, Royal Ludroth, use their sponge-like mane to absorb water and keep from drying out on land. Once the sponge loses moisture, they will seek out water to recover. They also spew mucus to trip up their prey. There are so many cool cutscenes that are begging to be researched. What?
You said there are many cool cutscenes that are begging to be researched.
Did I? What type of cutscenes that need to be researched? There are so many cool monsters that are begging to be researched. Other than the intro cutscenes that the game plays once at the beginning of your first hunt for each monster, most of what you learn from a monster comes from fighting them. Once you do, you do get some hunter notes. Once you do, you eventually get hunter notes in your menu that tells you more about the monster, including its strengths and weaknesses. If you even mildly had interest in learning about animals as a kid or an adult, you will find joy in discovering new creatures in this world. If you're a newcomer to the franchise, each monster is going to be a brand new reveal, making it more of a spectacle the first time you meet them. In Monster Hunter Rise, the implementation of the wirebug... In Monster Hunter Rise, the implementation of the wirebug differentiates
Yeah.
Bleh. Bleh. In Monster Hunter Rise, the implementation of the wirebug differentiates it from previous entries. The wirebug is a tool used mostly for mobilization. It synergizes seamlessly with your weapon, sometimes even making slower, heavy weapons just as mobile as the fast ones. There are some base movements that apply to your character regardless of what weapon you use, such as the wire dash and the wire how's it hanging.
Hang on, boys, it's all downhill from here.
But there are also weapon-specific moves that open up your move pool from previous Monster Hunter entries. With your weapon in hand, you set out to hunt for monsters one by one. Each monster isn't a one-and-done hunt, though. They each have several items they drop, with a different drop rate for each item. This RNG is reminiscent of some of the mechanics in RPG games that also rely on RNG. This is also a tactic that is employed in some never-ending ongoing online games. The major difference being that there are no limited resources, and you're not under a limited time to get what you want. I know that some players are turned off by RNG though. I don't particularly like microtransactions that stops you from playing a game or gatekeeps you into inputting your card digits in. So many ongoing online games do this in one form or another, with daily quests or events that give you a ton of in-game currency, but only a set amount per day. You can't grind out more currency because you get hit with diminishing returns that virtually make it impossible to progress unless you pay for it. And that's how online microtransaction-ridden games get you. You set out to hunt a few more times, each time getting faster and faster at hunting that particular monster and learning its patterns until you finally get that glowing item. Then, the dopamine rush hits you. You are now addicted. That's the good stuff. As with any addiction, you repeat the cycle several more times with stronger and stronger weapons. Your weapon moveset doesn't change though. You do, by getting better and more efficient. Eventually, you get hit with stronger versions of monsters that you faced, known as Apex monsters. The Apex monsters are faster, more aggressive versions of monsters you faced with an expanded move pool. They came into the game through updates though. Monster Hunter Rise is a full $60 game, so you expect the game to give you everything right out of the box, and I believe it does, almost to a fault. Like I said earlier, the game pretty much opens up most of its mechanics from the very beginning of the game. Your level in the game is determined by your skill, and that's a core part of the Monster Hunter experience. If you're a seasoned Monster Hunter veteran, you can tear through this game like a level 100 god in a level 1 RPG overworld. There's a hunter rank that goes up as you hunt monsters successfully. This ranking system isn't tied to any stats in the game. It's solely used as a means to open up stronger monsters, and HR rank goes up super quick if you're incredibly fast and efficient in slaying monsters, which you will be if you're a veteran and not a noob. Therein lies an issue with some seasoned veterans. Since the game rewards players from learning by playing, if you immediately understand the mechanics from prior experiences, you can get most of this game's content in several hours, as opposed to the hundreds of hours a more casual player or newcomer walks away with. I've seen this be a problem for some circles online. I believe this is a consequence of a bigger fan base. Capcom has to accommodate newer or more casual players, and level the playing field, blah blah blah. Capcom has to accommodate newer or more casual players, and level the playing field for everybody. This is a tough thing for a multi-million selling franchise to do, while keeping OG fans happy. But there is one other aspect of the game that helped propel it forward. In the late 90s, Pokemon came into existence. Pokemon wasn't the first RPG game to exist in this time, but it was the first to take things in a slightly different direction. Also, the first to go mobile. Back in the day, everybody with a Game Boy had Pokemon, and if you had a link cable, you were the cool kid on the block. The Pokemon motto was, gotta catch 'em all. But you couldn't do that unless you linked up with someone and traded Pokemon with each other. There was a community goal. There was no way you could become the ultimate Pokemon master without the help of a friend. Unless you were like me and managed to get 2 Game Boys, a copy of Pokemon Blue and Yellow, a link cable, and traded with yourself because you had no friends. Ultimately though, the sense of community and camaraderie was an integral part of the gameplay, and it helped turn Pokemon into the conglomerate it is now. Monster Hunter did things in a similar way, and just like Pokemon, the community aspect of the Monster Hunter gameplay helped exponentially boost its sales and mass appeal. Fast forward to Monster Hunter Rise, and the community still remains as it is. Fast forward to Monster Hunter Rise, and the community still remains, and is still a core part of the gameplay. The gameplay loop is there, but adding friends to the hunt makes the experience a ton more satisfying for a ton of people. As a newcomer, I'm not ashamed to say that I was definitely carried in several high-level hunts, with some friends that were a lot more experienced in Monster Hunter through previous entries. So while the hunts might seem easier than previous entries to some veterans of the series, I think that the sense of community is strong enough to keep veterans coming back, and they're bringing along newcomers with them. The dopamine rush of rare drops, the huge roster of weapons, the gameplay loop, the beautifully animated monsters, and the sense of community are all the things that make Monster Hunter Rise an addictive and worthwhile experience. If you have never played Monster Hunter before, I do encourage you to try it. Start out with Monster Hunter Rise, and then maybe check out some of the previous entries. There is no other series like Monster Hunter. If you enjoyed this video, then definitely leave a comment in the comment section down below and let me know what you thought of this episode. I would love to do more content about- wait, blah, 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 blah. We need to write that out, bro. I can't be like, hey, like, comment, subscribe, peace! Thank you so much for watching this video. If you would like to see more videos like this, then please let me know in the comment section down below. We would love to review more games, and what are we doing now? Thank you so much for watching this video. If you would like to see more videos like this, then please let us know in the comment section down below. We would love to talk about more games and go along this wonderful experience with you. Have an amazing night, day, or morning, and we'll see you guys next time. Okay, bye!